I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess, and today I am doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I'm actually doing this a little later than I had wanted to. I filmed a version of it originally and then wasn't happy with it, so I decided to refilm it and did not have a chance to until today, which is July 10th? 9th. Okay, not quite as bad as I thought. Phew. I was on vacation for a week, didn't have any of my books or filming equipment, so it had to wait until now, and I'm really glad that it did because it turned out that there's a book I want to include in here. So, let's jump right into the tag. There are 13 questions. But first, I actually want to start off with a question that is not here, but that I feel like kind of should be for the mid-year book freakout tag, which is how many books have you read this year? And my answer for that is 53 books so far, which is 3 more than my goal for the year, which was 50. So yay, I made my goal. I knew I would, and now I can feel good about myself. No, your self-worth should not be tied to how many books you've read, but you know what? I take the small wins where I can. All right, let's jump into the actual questions. Question number 1, the best book that you have read so far in 2023. And this has to go to Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. Oh, this is so good. This is a retelling of the fairy tale The Goose Girl, which is a fairy tale that I really like, and I have several other retellings of it that I've really enjoyed. But this is so good. This takes the perspective of the villain of the original fairy tale, who is a maid who steals the princess's identity. And Vanya, our maid here, is just such a character. She has such a great narrative voice. I love her. I love all the characters in this. They're just all so great. And it's just such a good story. And I love the way that Owen uses the original fairy tale. There were some things that made me just be like, oh my god, it was so good. Especially toward the end, there was one part of the fairy tale that I thought she wasn't going to use, and then it came in as this really vital part right at the end, and it was fantastic. And I was just, it was great. It's great. Excellent. Highly recommend. Loved it. I have a hard time believing that anything could knock it out of the best book slot for the year, but I've said that before for things and had it happen, so I'm not gonna say anything. Question number 2 is the best sequel you have read so far this year. And for this, I'm going to go with The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. So this is the first book in a new series, but the series is a follow-up to her Folk of the Air trilogy, which contains The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. So this picks up a few years after The Queen of Nothing leaves off, and we're following Surin, who was the former queen of the Court of Teeth, but she was really just a puppet queen and being used by her parents, who were horrible people. The court is disbanded at the end of The Queen of Nothing, and now Surin is just kind of off on her own, and we pick up with her and we have a whole story of what happens with her and Prince Oak, who is the heir to the throne of Elfhame. I love Holly Black. I've loved Holly Black since high school. The Folk of the Air is probably my favorite series by her, and this is just such a good follow-up. I really enjoyed it. I like Surin, who is called Ren, a lot as a character, and I cannot wait for the next book to see what happens. Yay! Hurry up, Holly Black. I hope it comes out next year. Question number 3, a new release that you haven't read yet but want to. This has to go to Painted Devils by Margaret Owen. This is the next book in the Little Thieves series, and I just can't wait to be with Vanya for longer. I've heard from several friends that it is so good. It's on my birthday list with like multiple giant stars next to it so that my mom knows, like, if you're gonna get me anything and just one thing, get me this one because I want it. I'm so excited for it. Question number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I don't have one. I don't know why. I feel like this happens every year, is all of my books that I want to read come out in the first half. And then I have nothing for the second half. So, unless I'm just forgetting something completely, there isn't one. Question number 5, biggest disappointment. All right, and this has to go to So Happy For You by Celia Lasky, which is a bad book, but it's not a disappointment because it's a bad book, because I knew it was a bad book going into this. I was fully aware. I found out about this because Emma from the channel Emmy had read it, and she didn't like it. She was like, this is a bad book. But it is dealing with some themes that I was like, this could be fun to just kind of see. And it was, however, there was something that really pissed me off. So this is the story of our main character, Robin, who is best friends with Ellie and has been since they were kids, but their relationship has kind of grown apart. They're very different people. Robin is very anti-marriage. She is getting a PhD in women's studies. She is a lesbian and just does not buy into this whole wedding culture. Ellie, on the other hand, has completely bought in. She's like, I need to get married before a certain age, and my wedding needs to be perfect. Everything needs to be perfect. So Ellie asks Robin to be her maid of honor. And we know from the first page that this ends with them attempting to murder each other. So, like, it sounds fun, right? And it totally was. It was a 3-hour read for me. I sat on my couch for an afternoon. It was great. It was a bad book. It's badly written. It's not good. But that's not what was disappointing. What was disappointing for me is that this whole book is about how childhood friendships don't necessarily have to last forever, and sometimes they shouldn't. So I think a big thing when people get into their 30s and even their late 20s is that their friendships start to change, because people are changing at that point in their lives. Like, you're not the same person you were in high school, which is a very good thing, thank God, right? But because of this, friendships also begin to change, and sometimes they break down because sometimes they just don't work anymore. And I feel like this is a topic that is not looked at in literature nearly enough. When I see conflicts between friends in literature or movies, it always ends with them making up and being okay at the end, and that's just not true sometimes. Sometimes the friendship ends. And so this really seemed like it was going that direction. I mean, it was hammered home how toxic this friendship was, how they were not compatible, how they just did not work together at all. And I was like, okay, you know, this was the one redeeming factor of the book for me. Like, it was poorly written, the characters were irritating as hell, but this was redeeming. And then at the very end, like the last 2 pages, Lasky just reneges all of it and has them, this is a spoiler, but like, don't read this book, it's not good. So I don't really mind spoiling it too much. She has them like restart their friendship, despite the fact that Ellie has attempted to murder Robin for the most stupid ass reason ever. They like, Robin freaking forgives her, and they're like, well, we're still friends. I'm like, are you kidding me? Hell no. No. So that was just such a disappointment that we go through all of this just to backtrack and have it all be okay at the end, when it was just not okay at all. Not okay at all. All right, that's my rant. Let's move on. Question number 6, biggest surprise. This has to go to Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall. I had this as an ARC from NetGalley. It is a Regency fantasy romance. And honestly, I was just like, the cover is pretty and this sounds fun. Like Bridgerton, but fantasy and with queer characters. And that's exactly what it is. And you know what? I had a really good time. Even though I don't feel like I'm a big romance reader in general. Like, books that contain some romance in addition to other stuff yes, but just straight up romance, not so much. But I really liked this, probably because the fantasy elements were really fun, but also the way that Hall weaves together the Regency with these fantasy elements was just so fun. And also, it is narrated by Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream. And he's the best narrator ever. He's hilarious. He's great. He's like outside the story. He's just following the characters around because he's like, these people seem interesting. And so it's just a really interesting narrative dynamic. And I had so much fun. I did not expect to give this 5 stars, but I did. And it was just such a good time. Question number 7, favorite new author. And this can be a debut author or a new to you author. I am going with a debut author, and that would be Katie Lumsden, or YouTube's own Books and Things. Her first novel, The Secrets of Heartwood Hall, came out at the end of February in the US and the end of March in the UK. And this was so good. Oh my word. I had such a great time with this. And I just cannot wait to see what Katie does next, because she's a great writer. This was such an excellent love letter to the Gothic genre, to Victorian literature. I highly recommend this. It's so good. And I'm gonna put this back down here because I have it for another answer. Question number 8, newest fictional crush, don't have them. Next. Question number 9, newest favorite character. And I would say that this goes to actually 2 characters. First would be Vanya from Little Thieves, but since I've already put that down and have things on top of it, I'm not grabbing it again. But the other one would be Cigarette from Under Two Flags by Ouida. This is a Victorian kind of adventure novel that I am reading for my dissertation, and Cigarette is such a badass. Okay, she's half French, half, I believe, Algerian, and she is just like following around the French army while they're in Algeria fighting this war, and she is such a badass. She saves the day on multiple occasions. She can shoot. She like goes straight into battle. She's great, and she is just, I love her. She's incredibly loyal to her army and her country, and she would do anything for them. And she's in love with our main character, Bertie Cecil, who is a English nobleman who has gone into exile and is now fighting for the French army. And she's in love with him, but she doesn't let him know she's in love with him. She's like, you're an idiot, I hate you. But then she goes to great lengths to protect him and make sure that he's okay, and to stand up for him when people are maybe bad-mouthing him or she feels that he's been slighted. It's great. She's amazing. I loved her so much. I am so glad I read this book just for her. Like, this book was a 3-star read for me, kind of. Like, it's 3.5. But she was just such a great character. Oh, loved her. Question number 10, book that made you cry. I don't have one this year. I feel like I have not read a whole lot of super emotional reads. And I think that has probably kind of been on purpose. And I'm just avoiding things that I think might make me cry, which is okay. I don't mind not crying at books occasionally. I am going to be reading a book in July that I think will probably make me cry. That would be Cujo by Stephen King. The dog dies. That's not even a spoiler. Like, I think we all just know that through pop culture osmosis that Cujo dies. So, you know, the dog dies, I'm gonna cry. But I haven't read it yet, so it doesn't count yet. So I don't have one yet. Question number 11, I think. Book that made you happy. This has to go to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This was the first book that I read this year. I had an ARC from NetGalley, and It was perfect. It was a 5-star read. It ticks all my boxes. Okay, so it's a historical fantasy. There's fairies. It's got a main character who's an academic. She works at Cambridge. She's studying fairies. And she goes to this Scandinavian country to look at these fairies that have never been studied before. It's just so cozy. It's super cozy. The romance has Howl's Moving Castle vibes. And it was just like, wow, Heather Fawcett, you wrote a book for me. That's so nice of you. I just couldn't stop smiling reading this book. It made me so happy. Question number 12, most beautiful book you've bought this year. And The Secrets of Heartwood Hall is coming back again. Look at this cover. I have waxed poetic about this cover a few times in various videos. I'm doing it again. Look at this cover. Oh my God. If I could have a living room with this wallpaper, I would. My husband would not allow that, but that's okay. And I love how it's peeling back here. But the real absolute stunning part. Look at these end papers. They're so gorgeous. These end papers are what made me be like, okay, I need to buy the UK edition. Like, the US edition is nice looking, but this is like top notch. I want to send roses to whoever did the cover design for this and the end paper does, like, whoever you are out there that worked on this book, you know what you're doing. You are amazing and I love you. That is all. All right, last question. Question number 13. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? So, a lot is the short answer. I'm just limiting myself to ones that I'm reading for school for this, because those really are the ones that I need to read by the end of the year. And even then, I'm not entirely sure, like, do I want to read these ones, or I could read other ones? I don't know. But here are some of the ones that I think I want to include in my dissertation and will therefore need to read. First up is actually a reread. This is A Struggle for Fame by Charlotte Rydell. I read this last year, I think, maybe the year before that. I don't even remember anymore. But yeah, I need to reread it because this is definitely playing a key role in my dissertation. Charlotte Rydell is one of the 4 authors I'm looking at. And I need to read a few other books by her. I'm just not sure which ones. So I'm going to start by rereading A Struggle for Fame. Next up is Aurora Floyd by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. She is another of the main authors I am focusing on. I'm super excited for Aurora Floyd. This sounds really good. Like Lady Audley's Secret, it deals with another woman in a bigamous marriage. And it's a sensation novel. It should just be a fun time. And I need to read more by Braddon as well, but I'm not sure which ones I want to look at. I'm thinking I probably will read The Doctor's Wife, but I know I want to read a few more, and I need to look into which ones to read by her. So if you have any recommendations for what other books by Braddon to read, hit me up. And then another one by Ouida is Princess Napraxine. I started reading this earlier this year and it wasn't the right time, but I really want to use it for my dissertation, and I've heard that it's really good, so I will be doing this once again at some point. And then I have 2 by Margaret Oliphant. First is her novel, The Eightlings, or The Three Gifts. I don't know a whole lot about it, but it sounds like this kind of involves possibly a woman writer, which might be interesting for what I'm doing. I'm not sure, so I just want to read this and check it out. And then the last book is a novella by Margaret Oliphant, and this is The Library Window. I just bought this recently. It is one of her supernatural stories. and I've heard that it's really good. It's super short, so reading this by the end of the year will not be a problem. I don't know about these other ones though, but we'll see. So that is my mid-year book freakout tag. I would love to hear down in the comments below your answers to some of these questions or your thoughts if you have read any of these books that I've talked about. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.